What's up, everybody? So, big news just happened that from one of my favorite camera companies, Sony, their new A7S III was just announced today. And we had the leaked B&H video, like, presenting the whole thing, and then, the roof collapsed on the studio, and we were... It really did. We were gonna record the video, and then I walked into the studio, and there was water everywhere. We're in Florida, and there was a good old water thing last night, and the roof leaked, and so now can't really do it in the studio. But here we are at a wall. I think Alan got a little bit of BTS. Literally, dude. My waterproof backpack got wet.
Jesus. Anything inside got wet?
Everything. This camera that we're recording with is wet. Yeah, I'm afraid that it works fine, but I'm afraid this is why you need to keep innovating, because we saw the Make Art Now video about having a mobile studio, and so now everything's just on this one C stand, and it's all powered by one V mount, including this computer we're working on. So I'm really glad we got that working before. Anyway, if you're wondering why, I mean, you know, we don't have as much production value as we usually do, I also apologize if this isn't as well edited as most of our videos, because I'm going to take the rest of the day off. Right? So, what we have right here is the actual B&H video that they actually put out, and I didn't need to rip offline. So, luckily we have the entire thing. So let's get into it.
Alright, gamers.
It's front way around. Good? Are we good? Can I?
It would be the least catastrophic thing that happened today.
I'm not even like at a computer that this is standing up. I'm using a Steam controller instead of an actual keyboard and mouse. So that's how you know this is the good stuff. Let's get into it.
It's finally here! After years of waiting, the Sony A7S III is real, and it brings with it countless improvements. Basically, everything you were asking for. 4K 120p video, 10-bit 422 color, that's right, a vari-angle LCD screen, fast phase-detect autofocus, and of course, even better low-light performance than before.
Yes, okay. He just blew my mind with all that stuff. So 4K 120 frames per second, 10-bit footage, which is great, because with the A7 series, usually it's around 8-bit, but getting more bit depth gives you way more room to play with in post, which is good for Alan to color grade.
8-bit sucks!
If you go watch Time Sheriff, you'll see why 8-bit's not the best. There's a bunch of bits in the background. It's not your fault. It's really well lit. Just like everything in the background is just like.
Just watch To Wake Up Dead and look at the background.
Yeah. And then what is the best thing, and the reason why this was also a little bit harder to get started, is it has a flip out screen. Finally.
Oh my god! It took how many years?
All of them. Since Sony started, it took that long. Not one of those flip-up screens that's going to block your viewfinder. An actual flip-out screen. Finally. Oh, I'm so excited. So that's some really great stuff that I already am very excited about.
Everything in the A7S III is redesigned, but it's still based on the idea of using a relatively low-resolution 12.1 megapixel full-frame sensor.
Okay, for people that are curious, like, why use a 12.1 megapixel sensor? Well, at least this is what I was told for the A7S 1 and 2, is that by doing that, that gives you better low light sensitivity, because when you have less pixels, you get less noise. So it's easier to get really crazy low light footage. As he'll show, the ISO is insane, and even better than the A7S II, that this is, it's crazy. So if you're curious about the megapixels, that's why.
One huge benefit of this setup is that rolling shutter is effectively eliminated, which is a huge improvement, I know, over the A7S II.
I don't know any mirrorless camera right now that doesn't have rolling shutter. So them not having rolling shutter in the A7S III is already, that's crazy. And what rolling shutter is, if you don't know, it's when you move the camera back and forth really quick, it makes these swaying lines, which you can also see in one of our early short films, Outcast, where we do this like whoosh move, but you see this big rolling shutter. But that's going to be eliminated with the A7S III.
Wait, it doesn't have that jelly effect?
Yeah, the jelly effect.
So it doesn't like...
It doesn't have that.
That's bullshit, because like... That's bullshit. Cinema cameras don't have that.
Right?
So first off is file format. We have all of the XAVC formats. The new ones are the XAVC HS format, which is an HEVC codec, and that gives you a lower bit rate, same quality.
So he just brought up that they have like a compressed like 2 times compression bitrate version of 4K, which is really good for something that they'll get into later, which is the insane amount of data that's going to be going through your media to save all of your data. So having something that can compress it down, Sony usually doesn't have that kind of thing. So being able to still get 4K, even though it's compressed on an SD card that might not have the best transfer speeds, is really good.
Down below, we have the intra-frame versions. So these are very high 600 megabit recordings. These require a V90 SDXC card or a CF Express Type A.
Yeah, and he just mentioned that they have a new CFast type, that's CF Express. So that's, yeah, it's like a CFast card that is about the size of an SD card. So the exact same way that Sony has their SD card slots, they have 2 SD card slots. This camera also still has those 2 SD card slots. The main difference is the fact that you can kind of switch them backwards and it can read SD cards and then CFast, this new CFast type, which lets you do up to like, I think it's like 900 megabits per second, which is like SD cards can't do that right now. So this is another big thing, and that's how they can get 4K at 120 frames per second, which is I just want it. I want it so bad. I want this. I want this so bad.
Hybrid log gamma has actually been on a few of Sony's cameras recently, but this is the first time that it's on the A7S series. And naturally, that means that you can shoot in 10-bit 422.
Oh, look at that. Okay, so HLG, high dynamic range images, finally on the A7S series. That's been something with the A7 III and all of the other series, but finally getting the A7S is really good. And also, like he said, 4K at 10-bit 422. Gives you so much room to play, so much room to have some fun. So I can't wait to get this in the studio so Alan could play around with some of these colors.
I won't touch any Sony camera ever.
You won't touch any color grade for a Sony camera?
Any color grade for a Sony camera.
You've been burned on Time Sheriff, To Wake Up Dead, Outcast, you know.
Every other project out there that I've used. And these things, I mean, even back when I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Even now, like, To Wake Up Dead, it's like
when you're like you have very competent with a color grade, and then
it's just still there. It's like, dude, what am I supposed to do? I mean, then again, I used the free version of DaVinci for that, but I shouldn't be paying an extra $300 just to correct something that I can't help with the camera.
Yeah.
Then again, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing with Sony's.
Me either.
Tell me in the comments below. Does Alan know what the hell he's doing?
Yeah, let us know if you have any tips about how to get better images out of Sony. But this camera
don't say buy it, Canon.
But this camera seems to give you like far more options that you don't really need to do too many workarounds, especially one coming up.
Now here's the big one. 16-bit RAW external recording up to 60p. That's right. Using the full-size HDMI port, the A7S III can send out a 16-bit RAW signal.
16-bit RAW.
Shut up.
Did you just hear that? 16-bit RAW. Out of a full-sized HDMI port. Thank you so much. You don't need these stupid adapters. Right now, we got a dingle adapter right now just to get the Sony, for me to be able to see what's coming out of the Sony. Oh, I love that we don't even have a field recorder or field monitor that it can actually record like that yet. But I cannot wait to see 16-bit RAW footage. That's crazy.
Oh, and there's no recording limits whatsoever. It certainly feels hot, but good thing it's got a new cooling system, so I don't think it's going to overheat. Only one way to find out. The new passive heat management system will even permit long recordings of at least an hour in 4K 60p.
New cooling system, so no overheating. Thank you. That is the biggest problem with every Sony camera is overheating. So not only no overheating, but no record limit. Thank you so much. That is our biggest problem. If you've seen any of our podcasts, you know, we had to stop. We took a little break because we had to stop recording because of the record limit. We've done a bunch of live shows that are like an hour or two, and that's always the problem is like, cool, now we don't have time code, so I guess in post we're just gonna have to align them. Yay! But now, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to put this through its paces and actually see how well that works out.
Now, Sony says that there's 15 plus stops in the video mode, so right now we're in pretty harsh sunlight. Once we bring it in post, we see how those highlights are handled. I think it's going to be good, personally, going by experience. Highlight roll-off is very pleasing, and you can recover a lot. Probably a little more with the RAW mode.
15 stops of dynamic range? That's crazy. If those are, I wish they showed us the overexposed version of those photos, because they look fine, but like, I want to see what it looked like when it was completely blown out or when it was completely underexposed, and see how they corrected it. That would have been really cool.
What I've done here is ramped up ISO values, starting from either 2500 or 3200, and ramping it up to the maximum of 409,600. There's ambient light around, of course, so the image will eventually become overexposed, but you should get an idea of just how much room you have to play with this camera.
ISO to 409,600. Unless you've messed with an A7S II, you don't realize how bizarre like this ISO is, because not only with that, I remember I went to the highest ISO value and there was plenty of noise, but like I was in a pitch black room and I could see everything. It was completely fine. This not only corrects for it so much that cities that are completely dark, like all of those little itty bitty lights that are lighting up the night, are blown out and you can see everything. And that's the crazy thing with like the A7S series, is that when you actually use them and put them through their paces, you see that how weird and underlit shot looks when it's exposed correctly, because it's just like, oh, everything is kind of even because it's completely pitch black and everything has about the same lighting. So it's super crazy. When I was looking at these the first time, I was just like, oh, these all look like bad because everything's kind of evenly lit because it's just pitch black. So the thing that really freaks me out is that, like, I mean, I'm looking on a small screen because we're in this gosh dang middle of nowhere trying to record this. But when I was looking back at this, some of the noise wasn't really that distracting. It wasn't like really obvious. And that's the crazy thing about this camera and the A7S II, is that even though it does have a decent amount of noise, it's not distracting. It's not usually like those really colorful fireflies. And with, I would love to grab this, put it through its paces in a pitch black room, and then go into DaVinci Resolve and try with the denoiser and see what it would look like. But this stuff is like, look at it. It's all evenly exposed weirdly, except for like those big highlights. It just looks so alien. Like, this doesn't look like real life.
Now, I'm a fan of lighting things, of course, so it's not as though everyone should be shooting at 409,600.
Alan, would you like to go on your rant about, he just said, hey, everybody shouldn't just be doing this, light your scene properly?
Is that what he said?
He just said that, yeah.
Okay, good. I don't have to repeat it. You see, guys, even the professionals say, hey, light your scene properly.
Light sources that may not even register in other cameras can provide an ambient glow with the A7S III, such as the colorful, glossy effect you get on the water here, or the almost sci-fi appearance you get from the streetlights filling out the frame.
So yeah, this is the main thing that I really love, is the fact that like with a higher ISO value that doesn't really like mess up your scene, you do have the ability that, let's say you're in a darkly lit environment and then you use like a small light to create like different glow or like gloss on something. That's something that you can only achieve with this camera, because other cameras can't really deal with that dark light. So you film in like a really dark place, and then smaller lights can then create a different ambience and it'll look completely different. So that's the crazy thing about all these different cameras. We just covered the Blackmagic Ursa Pro 12K whatever, and each of these different cameras are covering a different thing. So this one, some of the images coming out of it you can only get with Sony because of the ISO values and because you can shoot with this crazy low light.
Now, on both stills and video, autofocus has been a strong point in Sony's cameras for quite some time now. There are 759 phase detect AF points and 425 contrast detect AF points, offering 92% coverage. Real-time IAF is now on the camera, both human and animal.
So 92% coverage with 700 phase detection points and 400 contrast points. They also have animal autofocus for animal eyes.
Aww.
Right? Isn't that cute?
That's nice.
So yeah, so human eyes, animal eyes, as well as in Gerald Undone's video, he talks about how they have better autofocus for different exposures. So if you go a couple stops up or a couple stops down, if it's underexposed or overexposed, it still can autofocus, while the A7 III that we're recording on and a couple of other cameras, their autofocus isn't as good when you overexpose. This stuff is beyond crazy. I mean, look at that kitty. I had to pause on the cat because I love cats. I wish Jack was here. I was going to bring him to the office, and then it was water.
And then water.
He was so upset because I was trying to move stuff around and he was just in his bag just like, let me out. I'm like, no, you'll be even more upset with all the water.
So as you can expect, the 5-axis in-body image stabilizer is still here. It's back. Now upgraded to 5.5 stops of stabilization, and that's great because on a 70-200 lens, you're gonna want it when you're trying to capture the Manhattan Bridge.
The thing about Sony that I really love is the fact that like Sony cameras are really point and shoot. They are immediately meant for you to pick it up, go film something, and it'll look good in camera. While like cinema cameras, they don't have in-body image stabilization. They don't have autofocus because you have a team to do that so you can craft that image. But this camera looks like the ultimate like grab and go, just go film something, go take pictures, and what you're gonna like what's gonna come out of the camera. And if not, it has a high dynamic range, it has a high ISO value, you're gonna be able to get some really crazy stuff, even if all of your conditions aren't just right. Like now, with this wall.
While the A7S III is only 12.1 megapixels, if you're not primarily a stills photographer, this could still be an incredible option for web delivery and social media photography.
I love that he said that. I love that he said, he's like, it's only 12 megapixels. If you're an online photographer that's doing web-based stuff, this will be a fine camera. It's probably not going to be amazing for photography. So I appreciate he made that distinction.
The menus of the A7S III have been completely redesigned and now follow a horizontal hierarchy. So it's very easy to find out where you're going, and on top of that, it is a touch menu. So everything is scrollable.
Just love that menu system. I love the fact that it's a cascading thing, kind of like a file system, where you have the big idea, then the smaller ideas, and then the smaller ideas as you go through. And that you can use your thumb to scroll through is nice. I'm not a huge fan of touchscreen navigation just in case, but if it is quicker and it's nice, that works. I got stupid giant man hands, Cro-Magnon thumbs, so I'm good with just like regular using the button. But being able to actually understand where my stuff is instead of like, God, dude, I don't even want to get into the Sony menu system right now, but this is a welcome addition.
So there's dual card slot arrangement here. Now, the really cool thing is we have both SDXC and CF Express Type A, which is a brand new card that is actually debuting alongside the A7S III.
So here's something that they bring up about the new CFast type cards as well as SD cards, that they both can go in the same slot. So that's really nice that you don't need to have like a separate part where you need to put in CFast or whatever. They both slot into the same place. And this is, I don't know if this is the first camera that can use them, but they are debuting with this camera. And another thing that Gerald Undone mentions in his video that I really love is the fact that you can continuously record with these. So if you start with the first slot with your SD card and then that starts getting full, it can then transition to the second slot when it's done, and when the first one's full, then you take that one out, put in another one to the first slot, and it'll keep cycling through. So with no overheating, no record limit, you technically could keep recording forever, theoretically. I still want to just get the camera and try it. I just want to record for 80 hours and see if it works.
Looking forward, CF Express Type A can provide much faster speeds than SD cards and have plenty of room to grow. The LCD is nice, but honestly, a day like today, you need the CVF.
And really quick, I just want to say again, flip out screen. Who knew I would be so excited over a stupid screen? But being able to flip out the screen and be able to see what you can do on a Sony is crazy. This is like an abusive relationship where they just like brought home flowers one day. I'm like, oh my God, you do care, after beating me for like 10 years. So like actually having a flip out screen is so nice, and being able to do something finally ergonomic with the screen so that you can maybe vlog or do something like that without having to put a giant Atomos Ninja on top or something like that. Don't try it. It sucks. I've tried it before.
I have to say it's a vast improvement over the A7S II, which was, in my opinion, very cluttered at times. This one also has a completely redesigned mode dial, so switching between video and stills is now only one notch away.
I love that people are bringing it up, the fact that like now switching between video mode and photo mode is literally one switch on the dial instead of 3 switches, which is useful, but I didn't realize how many people were like really about that was really an issue for them.
So on the left side here, you can see we have a full-size HDMI port. That's what's used to get the 16-bit raw output. And we also have both a micro USB and a USB-C connection. The USB-C connection, by the way, supports both power delivery and connection to a LAN adapter.
Hey, USB-C, that's my good stuff. And it also can power the entire camera, as well as I saw that they take the exact same batteries as the A7 series so far, which is great for me because I already have a bunch of those batteries.
The camera supports 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi connections internally, and PC remote shooting via Wi-Fi or wired connections. Now, while we did touch upon the dual card slots earlier, we didn't have a CF Express Type A card to test.
I'm curious if this is actually how the SD cards go in, because that's genius to just put the pins on the other side. So it's just like, cool, if SD goes in, it goes this way, and so the pins are on that side. And if the CF Express card, that's what they're called, CF Express A card goes in, goes the opposite way. And so you can have, if they're a similar form factor, you just need to change the rotation, and you have twice the functionality, one card slot.
The new CEA G series will bring 80 and 160 gigabyte capacities, offering 800 megabyte a second read speeds and 700 megabyte a second write speeds, necessary of course for the faster raw burst modes and 4K intra-frame video. Naturally, there's a new reader as well, the MRW G2.
Now that is the one thing that I do not love about different types of media, is that for a CFast, you need a CFast reader, and for these CF Expresses, you need a different reader. SD cards, most computers have a reader, which is my favorite thing about them, and my favorite thing about the Sony series in general is how much you can do with just SD cards. So you go out and buy a bunch of high quality SD cards, now you have in a tiny little pouch all of your media for the day, and you don't need to worry about potentially breaking a hard drive or corrupting it or something like that. You just have a bunch of different SD cards you can cycle through really quickly, and most computers will be able to read them.
The A7S III packs a lot into a smaller, lighter package than other cameras in its class, coming in at only 614 grams. Sony's XLR adapter, the XLR K3M, will now support 4-channel 24-bit recording directly through the A7S III's multi-interface shoe.
So that's something I want to try, is having those little adapters that clip onto the top of the camera that give you the functionality of XLR input. And it seems like with that, this basically becomes a cinema camera. I mean, like, not completely, don't get me wrong, feel free to start a flame war in the comments, but like, these mirrorless cameras are getting so close to being usable on like a film set for cinema purposes. And I know they've made movies with the A7S series, but this in particular is getting really close, and especially having XLR inputs and all that kind of stuff, and being able to get all of your media and all of your inputs into one tiny camera and then record to an SD card or these crazy CF Express cards is just like, we're in the future. This is the future is now. I keep saying that, future is frickin' right now.
So, are you excited?
This guy's grin it rubs me the wrong way, that he's just like, oh, you like this, don't you?
The A7S III is a powerhouse of a camera, not only bringing back unparalleled low-light performance, but also adding in recording features and processing advancements that result in some of the cleanest, sharpest images available. Quite frankly, I'm floored with what this camera can do, and between the extreme sensitivity and the super fast autofocusing, shooting feels effortless.
And there we have it. Oh, the Sony A7S III. Alan, what do you think?
It's not a real camera until it has an SDI output.
Is that you're really gonna do this to me right now?
No, I'm joking. I think they're getting really close to being like a more cinematic, more of a workhorse camera than it is for a prosumer or even a consumer camera. Mm-hmm.
Well, it is, so something he didn't mention in the video, it is about $4,000. That's the thing. Like, as these things keep getting better and better, you sacrifice in one place or the other. Do you want 6K and like I think it's 2K at high frame rate, I think it's 120 FPS, or do you want 4K at 120 FPS and this crazy low light and autofocus? And man, there's just so much in this camera.
I don't know. I think the 16-bit is something that I've never really heard or touched. I don't know. Just it's raw. I want to know how it handles. It's raw. I don't know if it's gonna be like a different type of Sony log or something like that. Maybe it's like a power up of a log that they already had, or an S log that they already had. So that could be fun to play around with. Like if we're shooting on a Red or an Ari or something like that, and we have let's say that we have this stupid scenario where we're shooting a movie or a scene or something, and we have all this cinematic, like the cinema cameras, right?
Yeah.
Like an Ari, for example. Oh, but we don't have a Steadicam that can handle a fully built Ari. Mm-hmm. Let's just put this A7S III on it and maneuver or whatever. I think it'll be all right. Yeah. I don't think it's gonna, at least to me, this is just me. Again, I'm not a Sony shooter. I personally don't think the camera's really for me at the moment. I'm really satisfied with the Blackmagic 6K, but I can see why people are so hyped about it, because it's like it is gonna be great. I do think it's gonna be great.
Well, now that this camera's waterlogged from a freaking thing this morning, I might have to get a new one.
I don't know.
'cause,
It's still recording.
It's still working. That's my main issue, is that it's taken its lumps. It's taken a beating, this camera. But especially like if they can use a GoPro on the second Hobbit movie, if Lights Out actually did some pickup shots with the Blackmagic Pocket, like the OG Blackmagic Pocket. So cameras like this and like this crazy stuff, especially with 16-bit RAW, I think that they can start like folding it in with other productions. And my main thing with all these cameras is the fact that like really cinematic stuff, and it's been in our hands for a while, like consumers can start or prosumers can start making some really cinematic stuff more and more. But this one in particular, just having the ability to do 4K 120 FPS and being able to get all of that different dynamic range out of it is crazy. So I'm really looking forward to it. So please, in the comments, please let us know what you think of the A7S III. Are you thinking about getting it for $4,000, or are you thinking about getting a different camera, or just are you satisfied with the camera that you have? What do you think of the new systems, any of the different features? What are you most excited for about it? I'm most excited for the freaking flip out screen. It's been forever. My Rebel T5i has one. Come on, Sony. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, that's what I'm excited for. And if you like this video, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. Consider subscribing. Hit that bell icon. Please. We're trying hard here.
The world is collapsing around us.
I know I said that in the last video, but like legitimately, this is the one where it's just like, oh my god, this is crazy. So thank you guys so much for watching, and bye. I'm too tired. I can't even.